England yesterday morning and headed up the hill here. So little time warp. And
you're used to that.
the water is better in England and Europe than it is here. No chlorine in anything. So
Is it really?
yeah, it's really good water, just in the hotels even. It's amazing. We live in Humboldt. You think the water would be good, but it's got so much chlorine in it even there. It's weird. So, yeah, crazy.
How do you like our food?
Over here or there?
Yeah, over here.
Oh, I'm an American, so I love the food.
Okay.
yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So I don't know if anybody else is thinking this, but when I first heard of you, this is the first question that came into my mind. How did you get the name Dangerous Bob?
Well, Daryl knows the answer to this, but I'll tell it again. On the first Back to the Future, we were always behind, and we had no money. So when we'd get props set and the lighting went on, because the shots that Bob would set up were so complicated, it took a lot of lighting, a lot of time. So when I had my prop set and he's on the set, he goes, come on over here and sit down here and tell me a story about the 60s when you were a roadie with the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane. And I'd tell him these stories that, like, I vanished, my mom didn't know where I was for 3 or 4 years, or payphone, hi Mom, I only got a minute, yeah, I'm in Chicago, life's great, and have her crying. So I'd tell him these stories and just the craziness that went on. And I actually told my wife some of it, I probably shouldn't have. But at night at dailies, he would tell Steven Spielberg about his prop guy and this crazy, wacky life he led. And Steven went, I guess this, Bob told me this after, that he said, that guy's dangerous. He goes, no, he really isn't. But he's done all this stuff he wished he could have told his mom about. And so, I don't know, 2-3 weeks into the show, he came down to the set. In fact, this was still when Eric Stoltz was there before Michael came. And he came to the set, and we were told he's coming down with Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Gale, who were the head of Amblin. Well, Bob Gale was the writer-producer of Back to the Future. And so we figured they're shutting the show down because there's literally no money and we're behind. And so we're all going, oh my gosh, we're going to be laid off. And he comes down, we're all lined up, and he goes, is Robert Whidden here? And he points at me, and I go, yes. And I figured that I had blown a prop and the continuity was off. We're going to have to reshoot. Pardon me. My allergies have got me here. We live in Humboldt, and it's real green. But
Allergies are worse here.
yeah, pardon me. And so he says, get over here and get down on one knee. And I figure I'm going to get a tongue lashing or something because they're going to reshoot a scene, or I'm going to get fired because I'm costing them money. And he pointed at me and said, I've heard the stories, and you're known as Dangerous Bob from now on, and that'll be your screen credit. And okay. So a few weeks later, actually when we got Michael and we're shooting the high school, Bob Zemeckis goes, go spray Dangerous Bob on the side of the school right there. So you'll see it as Michael walks up, Dangerous Bob. You'll also see it kind of half erased on the blackboard. And it might have even been Daryl there. One of the fans reminded me of that about 3 years ago. Did you bring that up at WonderCon or something? But on the blackboard. But and he's a good friend of mine, Daryl. And I'd forgotten about that. And I had to watch the movie again to see that. Oh, yeah, I put it on there and kind of erased it. You forget things. You forget props. Right. Just like actors have to memorize 3 pages of dialogue, right, and the next day they're in another scene. They couldn't tell you what they did the day before, except to stay in character. So he said, that'll be your screen credit. Pardon me. And that's the one thing I look for at dailies, because when you make a movie, if you're an electrician, that doesn't have to read the script, hasn't been in pre-production for 3 months, have the pages torn out of your script and new pages put in and run for props, have to manufacture something new, you're not tied to it in the same way. When you see the final product, you go, hey, that's really great. You don't see the work. But when you're on a pre-production and your props have changed, and I think I told Daryl this, that for every newspaper that you see on Back to the Future, we did 20 before it was done right. There were no computers. Bob Gale, his whole office was blackboards, I was telling you, and the whole time continuum was on it. And he would go up to JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs in Glendale, and he would get with the scientists, and he'd have 1 hour wrong or 1 day wrong. It was Wednesday, 1955, that might be wrong, or the hour for the time continuum that we were plugging everything in the DeLorean that Doc was talking about. So our newspapers would change at the last minute. I always wish we would have saved them, because the fans would just love those, to see all the progression of, especially the props and the writing process.
Right.
Without computers, he could have done it today in his office,
right,
but back then you couldn't.
Right.
Pardon me. And so And even the clock tower flyer, we probably did 5 of those till the wording was right they wanted that would tie into everything. And so did I veer off the point there a little?
No,
'cause
no, you're good, you're good. I
The one thing with props is people ask it, it's not always a simple question like, why did he turn right? Well, and it just becomes like, because anyway, I veer off sometimes and try not to be too
Well, here,
boring.
hold on. I got you. I got
there
you.
you go. Thank you.
I got you.
Okay.
So I know when
Pardon
you're
me.
creating a movie, there's a lot of stuff to consider. You have the scenes, you have the characters, you have wardrobe. And when you're creating a scene, especially for a feature film, you have to look at like all the different props that go into helping make the scene. So there could be a ton of props for the entire movie. How do you go about collecting these type of props or even making them?
Well, you have to break the script down. Just take Doc Brown, the watches he wore. For every watch you see, the 2 different watches on his hands, the other one probably showed Bob 30 watches for each watch till we came up with the one we want. Now you have to find doubles, if not triples.
Right.
If it's going to break, or with Doc Brown, we had probably 3 of each watch. Pardon me, and that was scouring like 5 different prop houses because they're all vintage. And also going to our vintage guys in Hollywood on Barham and down on San Vicente and Melrose and antique watch shops, trying to find even more doubles. Because with props, you cannot have enough doubles.
Right.
And
Right.
the electric watch that Marty had, we had 20 of them. And we bought them from probably 15 different places because they just weren't around back then like you can buy them now. Props are, the average, I was telling you, I beat the system. I'm 73 years old. I did a little over 30 years. The average prop master at my level retires at 62, 64 with 30 years and collects 14 months of retirement and drops dead. So I beat the system. I retired in 99. But that's how stressful the job can be is the point I'm making. According to the Motion Picture Hospital, it's the highest stress level of any of the jobs.
I feel like you need to write a book or like make a T-shirt being like, I was a prop master and survived.
Yeah, I'm blessed. I am blessed. My grandfather was above the line in a sense. He was a pilot for Howard Hughes on all the war movies, for Clark Gable, Errol Flynn, David Niven, Harry Carey Sr., Walter Brennan, did I say that? Yeah. And my dad, after the Korean War, started at Universal. He was a number cruncher. And he started at Universal in the accounting department. And there was this lady starting the studio that was calling the best of every department and out of all the studios and paying really well to get him away from the studio. And her name was Lucille Ball. So she grabbed my dad to become an accountant and then a production supervisor. And he worked up to becoming the 3rd in charge of Desi Lou under Lucy, Bill, Heath, and my dad. And he was production supervisor in charge of all the production on the original Star Trek. And I was groomed to be in the military and go in the film industry. And I fought it for years till I was 25 and was never invited to dinners or birthdays till I started in the studios because I worked with rock bands and Tented Bar and rock clubs. And then when I was 25 and started in the studios, I was being invited to all the relatives' parties and things because now I conformed. And that's the way it was. If my friends who were in aerospace, their family, if they didn't go in aerospace, their family shunned them. If your dad was a dentist, I was born in the 40s, and you didn't become a dentist or a lawyer. It was kind of what I was meant to be, and I was actually going to do it just for the summer, to make enough money to go to law school and work for my stepdad's law firm. And when I got that paycheck 2 weeks later, I went, I think this is where I'm staying. Plus,
There you go.
when you enter a studio lot, it's a different feeling. You're separate. It's ego, yes, but it's a mill. It's behind walls, and it's not the real world. It's just not the real world. I try to describe it. And like when you're at Universal and the tours are going by and people look at you and you can see in their faces, they don't even know what you do, but they'd like to be walking on the lot and not paying for it.
Well, it's kind of cool. It's like you have that fourth wall. It's like as you're behind the scenes getting everything done, you're kind of like your own movie that they're watching.
Yes.
That's cool.
And props is, the bigger the prop master, it's kind of known in production offices like my dad, they like us, but they don't because they call it a license to steal. And we get the tie-ups. So you see a chainsaw like on Scarface, they wouldn't let us use McCullough chainsaw guy wouldn't let us use McCullough chainsaws to cut the arm and leg off because they wouldn't want an arm and leg getting cut off with a chainsaw. And that's when we found out the things you learn, that a chainsaw color is their trademark. And they said, if you even use another chainsaw and painted our color, we're going to sue you. So we bought Daiwas and painted them a different color. But we promoted Daiwas. They didn't care. But I ended up coming home with like 6 of them. And then you trade them with other prop masters for props to run on the next show.
So is that the most dangerous prop you worked with?
No.
Chainsaw?
Several were. The most dangerous was probably the machine guns on Scarface. We built for those. The rocket launchers were never used before. We built those, which if you see an AR-15 or M16, they were built for Scarface. No one had ever used them before that. You started seeing them on the A-Team after that and stuff, for all the movies.
Right.
And but Al Pacino, I was telling him every day, when you fire this, do not touch that barrel. And I was terrified. We all were, because Al gets going and Al's in the character. And,
Right.
I was with him for 4.5 years and beat him at racquetball a lot, and he got in that character and tried his best to beat me, but he didn't. But he's just a great guy. But he fell on the barrel one day and grabbed that, and I thought there was a problem, but then Brian De Palma kept the camera rolling because he's screaming down there. I thought it was just something new he was doing, and that stuck to his hand, and we were out of work for, well, I wasn't, but most of the crew was out of work for 2 weeks while he was at the Richard Pryor Burn Center getting his hand healed up and stuff. But that might have been the most dangerous, other than another one on Legal Eagles, when the fireball, if you see where Bob Redford is at the door, and a fireball shoots out, went back in, and the effects guy we set this up, and the person that was tightening up the bolt on the back of the compression chamber where the propane went into, natural gas, and it was loose, and underneath where he was at, it filled up, and the flame came in, and he landed outside of my feet and on fire. And those are probably the 2 worst. Well, and then the third one was...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
She just asked me this back here a few minutes ago, and I'm like, oh, my God, this stuff you try to forget. But thank you, by the way.
I'm surprised
No,
as a prop master you get to retire.
Yeah,
like.
it is kind of good because you get it out and you don't even know it's there hammering on you, and you kind of get it, probably like the psychiatrist, he's laying on that couch, and you get it out and you can relax later. But on Back to the Future, if you've seen the movie, and we're hanging all the stunt people off the crane and flying them into the glass at the courthouse.
Right.
It's a bank on another show I did. It was a courthouse there. And that biggest champion crane, and our first assistant director, Dave McGifford, the greatest guy in the world. You'll have first ADs that just suck up to, to production and treat the crew like crud. And then you have some that have that line. My dad as a producer did. The crew loved him, but... and David said, I won't do this scene because if that crane's off by an inch, it's going to throw them into the wall.
Right.
And the crane guy said, I agree, but I'll do my best. And all the stuntmen, being stuntmen and women, went, we can do it. So Dave got the DGA, Directors Guild of America, and the producers of the show, and Steven to come to the back line and said, I'm not doing it. Had to describe and tell him everything. Turned to me, I said, I've got him hooked up on the skateboards. I've got to go with Dave, but all I can do is give you the props. And the crane man said, yeah, I'm off, I'll do my best. But the stunt people said, we'll get it done, because that's who they are.
Right.
They're going to get it done, just like every car, but they just get it done. And it was off by an inch. And Darlene was, I think? No, the girl that played Darlene, the stunt gal.
Right.
I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry. I hadn't even thought of it till you brought it. He was off, and it put her into the wall. The other guys made the scene. It shattered every bone in her face, her wrist bone. She was out of work for several years. She was in her weight class, she was a karate and jiu-jitsu world champion, just the most marvelous person. She never said a bad word about it. It was part of her job, but
Right.
seeing this, and that was kind of a prop stunt as well. Right. Those probably are the 3 that really stand out, that people have been injured on.
Does something like that really stick with you?
Yeah, the crew is somber, and when they're in the hospital, on the way to the hospital, you wait, and you wait till you hear if they're going to live, because you didn't think they're going to live. I mean, she slammed into a wall at high speed, and you heard the bones and things. I don't mean to be rude, but sorry. Yeah, it's your family.
Right.
You've got 60, 100 people in a room smaller than this with lights bumping into each other. Your family.
Right.
And another thing, before the cell phones, if someone got hurt at 20th Century Fox and you're at Warner Brothers over the hill, you knew about it within an hour. So-and-so's cousin, so-and-so's nephew, my dad broke his back falling through the green beds or something.
Right.
There's a jungle beat. It was a real family in those days. Actually, before, if I may say, before Michael Eisner took over Disney, it was a family. And
Now it's like, we know what it is. It's a corporation.
Walt Disney had set up when every year they'd shut Disneyland down in the winter on a Saturday night at 5 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock for free, any industry people could go. And the busiest Disneyland would be 5,000 people at the most. Can you imagine that? All families. And I rode the Matterhorn with my little sister once in the front seat 10 times before we had to leave when someone came in, and then we got in the back for another 10 times. But when Michael Eisner took it over, it kind of changed. He stopped that, and it really changed the studio system as well. Just that one act where the families couldn't get together once a year, hadn't seen each other, or some new members were in the industry, or new kids, and you get to talk to little kids. Are you going to, I want to be a stuntman, I want to be a cameraman. And we lost that. And that one act, it affected the whole business and became more independence instead of on the lot,
Are there any of your people that like you keep in touch with? Because I mean, speaking of family, you work with a lot of people.
Yeah, there's some. My partner John Zemansky, of 20 of my 31 years, we did feature films together. We talk a couple times a year. He's moved to Oregon, and he's a Vietnam vet, and he got Agent Orange, and he's having problems with his hands and things. So we talk 3 times a year, maybe 4. He'll call me, and anyway. And there's a couple electricians. Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, Back to the Futures. I did 5 movies with him. We see each other 2, 3, 4 times a year at functions, and in LA when I'm there. A couple camera operators. The most I see now are the actors from Back to the Future. Jeffrey Wiseman, Marvin, Mayor Goldie, Marvin, James Tolkien, and Claudia I see a lot when I'm in LA, and she's part of the Fox Foundation, because we're part of the Michael Fox Foundation, my wife and I.
And you and Jeffrey are Team Fox.
Yes, we're Team Fox, and we're going to be in Chicago together in July, I think, right, when we get back from Marseille.
Real quick, do you want to maybe explain, just in case people aren't familiar with it?
Yes, my wife started this charity called dangerousbob.net. About 6, 7 years ago, my wife's a techie. She was a computer tech for the school system in Humboldt. And she'd get on to look up my film career, see what anyone was saying anything about my movies, because, and I wasn't really that knowledgeable or didn't think anyone cared. And she would ask me questions, and I'd say, yeah, on Back to the Future, yeah. And then about a month later, she said, hey, you want to come in here and see how people are answering the questions that I've been answering for you? And I see, that's why you asked me what happened on Back to the Future or Scarface. And she's answering these things like I was. Anyway, then we developed, I started answering things, and you start networking. I actually have a bigger family through Back to the Future and movies than I do in the film industry, because when you retire, people scatter that you've worked with, like you all know. But right now, our biggest family is Back to the Future family, Psycho, Scarface, which I always thought was going to be the biggest movie I did, but other than gangbangers, no one really wants to hear about it anymore. But Back to the Future, I believe, which we're part of the Michael Fox Foundation, the Go Team Fox. So 100% of everything we raise goes directly to research, because 2 anonymous donors a year and a half, 2 years ago, Bob Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg, donated so much money to the research side. Anyone that works for Go Team Fox, 100% of that money goes directly to research. And that's pretty neat for a guy who pretty much took things out of life all his life. And so Jeff Wiseman's part of that, Mayor Goldie, Marvin, Tolkien, Michael Fox, of course. And I'll just wrap this up by saying I believe of all the fan bases, Star Wars, Knight Rider, we're the best charity, Ghostbusters. The least amount of infighting over who has the best costumes. I think Daryl will agree with that over some. Oh, my jetpack or my proton pack's better. Maybe the DeLorean people are a little bit, because my DeLorean's a little better, but that's understandable because that's a big investment. But we're tied to a guy that works harder than 99% of the people on this planet that are healthy, and donates his life to finding a cure to this disease, which seems to be becoming more and more prevalent, like all diseases. And so it's wonderful being tied to that. And I was a guy, most prop masters take, because you promote something and you buy it on a show, now that they're independents, you take it home and rent it on the next show, and that's your money. And you don't give anything back to the company because you charge them everything. So because of my wife, I've become a charitable guy, and at 73, it's just marvelous. It really is neat. And I honestly think that's why I've lived longer than most prop masters.
So how exactly are you raising the money for the charity?
Well, I've sold most of my real props off, but we've made reproductions of some. And I buy stuff, like just things like this, And if I pay $10 for it, we sell it at $15. They do limited runs on just things. We have some stuff over in the other hall, and we charge $5 over. That $5 goes directly to Go Team Fox. We get the email address, and my wife sends that to Team Fox. They send a nice thank you. And that $10 goes back into my fund that I started from some of my prop sales to keep buying inventory and increasing our volume. This year we have from Travis Bell from Celebrity Machines. You know who they are, Daryl, right? They gave us just a ton of license plates. The Out of Time and the orange one, which I invented. It wasn't in the script. I invented that, the barcode one. And they gave us a ton. We just sold a bunch in England last week for Tim's Con. We sold quite a few today. And he charges $25 in shipping, which is understandable. We charge $20, and that 100% of that $20 goes directly to research. And so it's Travis Bell from Celebrity Machines. He's on Facebook. Look him up, thank him. Great stuff he has, and just the cars too. But anyway, that's the foundation, and that's why I think we're the best film fandom club, because we're family.
Right.
This year we have, again, 1885 in Columbia, where we shot part 3. Did it last year, had 800 guests, 88 guests. And for the week, we recreate the Old West, the drive-in theater, raised $12,000 for Go Team Fox. We have the 30th anniversary in October in LA with Joe Walser, who was a spearhead of the DeLorean A car that's at the Peterson Museum now. You met Joe. And also Michael Clistorin, who has, if you have his book, do you know the title of that book? Back to the Future.
Quick, someone Google it.
Gosh darn it. But it's Michael Clistorin. Look it up. It's every week on Back to the Futures, all 3 of them. And I read it every year. When I take off the 6 months a year we travel with this foundation, and I read things and I forgot. It is the most authoritative book on all the Back to the Futures, week by week. They're putting that on for Go Team Fox in LA in October for the 30th anniversary, and then back in September in 1885. So we have those coming up. And if you like us on Facebook at Dangerous Bob or Robert King Whidden, like us, and you'll see all the updates. And they're just a great group of people, cosplayers that make their outfits, just very creative, artistic people.
So that actually leads me to a personal question that I have. What is your most favorite prop from Back to the Future?
Well, it'd have to be the license plate, isn't it, Daryl? Only because I invented it.
I mean, let's take the bias out of it. Like this.
Yeah. And we were just invited when we were in England to Kent, and that's where Henry VIII's castle is. It's pretty cool. By Steve Wickenden, who has one of the really ace DeLoreans in time machines in England, and he has 2 versions. It's the same car, but he sent pictures and said, "Which version do you want?" With the Mr. Fusion or the other one. And the one had the license plate, my license plate on it, and everyone's going, "I know which one you're picking." So that's probably my favorite prop, only because I invented it, and grandkids will get to go, "Hey, my parents are square, but my grandfather was pretty cool," you know. So it's that might be my favorite prop ever, only because I was the creator of it, absolute, because like I said. But there's been so many.
Have you ever been to like a con or like an expo where you see people like making replicas of like your work? Like, or have people sent you stuff?
Yeah,
like,
they send me things all the time to sign. I said, just add shipping, and just send me $10, and $5 will be the shipping back, and $5 goes, and I'll sign it, and $5 goes to the foundation in your name. Do that all the time. That's fun. And a lot of times, if it's just a license plate, just send it to me. I'll sign it and send it back. But put $5 in through our PayPal, dangerousbob.net. You've got some scripts, Scarface script that Daryl donated very handsomely to the Fox Foundation with a reproduction of my Scarface script. And
but do you ever see like work from your fans who are like, "Hey, Dangerous Bob, like I made this," and like
the vests, the real on Bart Marty vests, Doc Brown costumes. Oh my gosh, wigs, gals that do wigs for people and make the wigs for these people. All the fan bases, from Star Wars to Ghostbusters, Knight Rider, Back to the Future. They're the most creative bunch of people you'd ever want to meet. And I have friends that are sports freaks, that have tattoos for the 49ers or Giants and used to paint their face. So how do you deal with all those people? They dress. I said, "Hey, I remember when you used to paint your face and you had to get drunk to do it. These people do this without drugs or alcohol. They're pretty cool."
We do because we love it.
Yeah, and they love it. They don't have to get whacked at a ball game to have fun. So But that's an interesting question. The prop as the ego would be that because I invented it and they didn't know where to go with that right on the set that day. Another one I love because Chris Lloyd made it work that people don't know about. In the future when he wears those silver goggles or glasses,
Right.
we could not come up with, Johnny and I, me, John, or Kevin Pike, our effects team, anything that would please Bob. He absolutely could not see the eyes in that scene because he wanted to be like, oh, there are cameras in there or something. But we could not come up with anything that the lights wouldn't go through. So that is spun aluminum. You cannot see. And the reason Doc Brown takes him off in the scene and goes, Marty, it's about your kids, is because he couldn't see. But we rehearsed it, and I stood next to the DeLorean, opened the door, and held his arm and walked him to the sandbags where he'd stop his feet, and did that about 8, maybe 9 times, somewhere in there, and he finally got it. And then we pushed the DeLorean, me and 2 grips, into the sandbags. Door came up, and he walked up, took a few times, probably 20 times, till he got it, hit his feet right, and then he takes the glasses off in the scene because he couldn't see. And that was one of my favorite props because Chris Lloyd made it work for me.
Nice.
And most actors would somehow have that change and not be able to fulfill the director's vision of the movie.
Right.
I personally think it would have worked better if he didn't have to take them off, if we could have come up with something, because it was so spaced out looking. People go, how the heck did they do that? How'd he see? Well, he could, but we couldn't at the time. They're just some of the greatest heads in Hollywood. Myself, my partner, and Kevin Pike's effects team, who created the DeLorean, built it up, and other props. We just couldn't come up with anything. I don't know if anyone could today. Today, they'd probably do it with CGI. Just
Sure.
do a CGI thing and wouldn't be the problem. And that scene would have gone a lot quicker.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a tough question. That's probably kind of most of it, I think. Yeah.
Well, I know you tour a lot, so I know for this year you still have like several more trips. You're going to be in France. You're going to be in
Marseille
the UK,
and Paris, yes.
Right. You're going to be in LA. Like you have a lot of stuff. So, are you going to be like? I don't know, like, do you ever, like, take pictures with your fans? Or,
Yes.
yeah, just, like, have a booth where you're just signing stuff and, like, listening to stories? Like, what's your 2019 like? And what are you most excited for?
I'm excited to go to all the functions. I'm 73, which I keep saying, but you do get tired. My wife's the one that has the energy, and if it wasn't for charity, I simply couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it like so many people do it to make money. They're DeLoreans, they build, and they go and they get $3,000 at a function. They don't donate to charity. That's fine. They've spent a lot, $100,000 or more building that thing. And I understand that. I do it and couldn't do it without being involved in a charity. I've stole too much from life. And so that's
It's a good
probably
motivator.
what keeps me going. And you know what it is? Meeting the people. And I have friends that a little younger than me, retired, and don't go out much, and they're talking about the way the kids' music is and the way they wear their clothes. I said, you sound like your parents. And they have no energy, and they have no desire, and they don't accomplish things. People are what keep people healthy. Right. The more people, positive people you meet, the healthier you're going to be. And the healthier they're going to be, because that positive energy spreads. And without people in your life, it's just not worth living. So anyone that comes over to our table and wants to take a picture, give us your name, even if you don't buy anything, we'll put it on our Dangerous Bob or my other sites and say thanks for coming by, and you can like us and see them. And you can also become involved with it and ask people questions. If you're building props, there's people, if I don't know the answer, I put it out there, and people go, hey, I'll tell you who to see. It's a really giving bunch of people, and people help people.
That's awesome.
So if that answers the question.
Sure.
I'm the guy that's usually behind the camera, and the last 4 or 5 years, I'm getting put in front of it. I'm getting a little better, but it still doesn't come easy.
Practice,
I'm the
my
guy that'd be
friend.
behind him saying, I can get it done for you up there, but then I walk away. Thank you very much for being here, by the way. So
I kind of feel like we're doing good because this is my first Q&A ever.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh, my
yeah.
gosh.
So like I definitely
Yeah.
had like the nerves and like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like a celebrity prop master, like So
Well, I'm usually with 2 or 3 other people. Like at WonderCon, we had Michael Clistorin and Joe Walser, Jeff Tucker, and so I'm usually not used to being alone.
well, you know what? High five. I feel
thank you.
like we were killing it.
Well, you're making it well. You're
oh,
making it work.
thank you.
So,
You have some great stories.
I tend to go on because it's not always a simple answer for me.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So real quick, but we have 10 minutes before we open it up to an audience Q&A. I have a quick question. Do you have anything that like really sticks out to you in your career? Like anything just like totally crazy or random or memorable or nostalgic?
Wow.
I know, put you on the
Well,
spot.
you know, and this is going to sound egotistical, but it isn't. It's just what I did. Things that stuck out with me when I did my first Robert Redford movie. You got to call him Bob, by the way. I had friends that said, "Oh, you call him Bob." You do, because if you call him Robert, he tells you, "Call me Bob," and the second time he won't answer you. When we did Brubaker in Ohio, I was there 6 months and 2 days on the calendar because they fired the first director, Bob Rafelson, who I loved because he directed all the Monkees and produced the Monkees, but he was insane. So nothing we were shooting, like the bus coming to the prison, it never would have got there because he kept shooting it like this. There was no continuity. And so they fired him about a month in, so it became 6 months and 2 days on the calendar till I got home to surf and sail my boat to Catalina. And I got in with Gary Lydiard, his makeup man, and Bernie Pollock, Sidney Pollock, the director's brother, was his wardrobe man before they retired. And I weighed 149 pounds in those days. I'm 210 now, and I ran. If I worked 18 hours a day, I ran a minimum 5 miles after that before I went to bed. And they saw me jogging all the time out of the hotel, the Hilton Hotel. We stayed in Columbus. And so I was invited to go jogging with them. And then it got to where out at the, it was a 15-hour workday, hour and a half on the bus to location from Columbus out to this prison, and then an hour and a half back. So it was an 18-hour day.
Jeez.
But I got in with them, and we would jog on the back road, wrap the show, and we'd run 5 miles behind the station wagon and then sleep on our way that hour and a half back. And that was just really neat as a kid to be asked to jog with these people.
Right.
I don't mean that egotistically. It was just, I was a bartender. I was a roadie with rock bands. Now I'm jogging with people. They're asking me, I was born in the 40s, and adults talk to you like you were nobody. And here I am being treated like a friend, you know, and it was neat. And then I was with Al Pacino for 4 years, and I'd play racquetball with him, and I never let him win, so he loved me. But that was the other thing, and that it stands out. I lived with a couple actresses, but when you're treated like an adult when you weren't all your life,
Right.
that becomes even more special than
Right.
the things you're creating on the set, I think.
That recognition.
Does that make sense? You know, when you're finally treated as an adult, more than your parents are even treating you at 25 in the film. I'd come home and tell my mom or my dad, the producer, "You were never good enough for him." "Yeah, well, you know, I was running with Bob Redford the other day." "Yeah, right, yeah. But you never got that recognition from your parents as I would from people that I admired that were putting their lives into a piece of art, you know. So,
That's like you were saying, it was a family.
yeah, it became a family and just people. They're just people, you know. And
Have you ever been starstruck? Or like
yes.
super nervous?
That's a great question because I had my mom crying on the phone on this one. I was doing the TV series Fame in 80, I think it was. And at MGM, I'd walk down a couple days a week and to the commissary and have lunch and get off the stage because those stages were so warm with the dancers. You'd just be falling asleep and you had to keep them really warm. So I'd get off the stage on the dance scene days, 3 days a week. I'd go to the commissary at the old MGM. And I was walking back with my ice cream cone down the main street. And I look way down. I go, holy crap. Who's that really guy, that big, tall, gray-haired guy in a gray suit with another guy in a killer $2,000 suit? And it was Cary Grant. And as I passed by him, I went, "Hi, Mr. Grant." He goes, "Hi, how are you?" See the hair standing up? There it is. I threw that ice cream cone down. I ran back to my office on the stage and called my mom and said, "Mom, I just saw the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in my life." He was 79 years old, and he died a few months later. And there they go. It's just chills. The only other time that happened was with Paul Newman when I walked by him at Warner Brothers, and here comes a guy in a business suit and an Indian. And I get next to him, and all you can see is his eyes, which he said in a Playboy interview in the 60s, "If my eyes ever change color, nobody will go see me in the film." And but when you see his eyes during the day, it's like they're fluorescent blue. And I saw him, I ran around the commissary at Warner Brothers, and right as he and his manager are going into the commissary, I went, he goes, "Nice to see you again." Totally busted my chops, but he handled it with nothing but class, you know, not like put me down. He knew people to, "Hey, really cool to see you again." But those two guys blew my mind. And Cary Grant, I mean, I have never seen a more perfect human being. in my life. I'm secure enough in my heterosexuality to say that about another guy. So.
Hey, nothing wrong with admiring
I
another,
can't
a guy
imagine
crush.
what he looked like in the 40s and the 50s. I might have changed games there, but no. He was a beautiful human being, just a beautiful man. And he gave his life to the business. He never heard any scandals, really. He there was movies he didn't take when he got older because he felt he was too old. For the actress that was with. And he was just a genuine guy, I think.
That's awesome.
If that's a good answer.
Heck yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of starstruck, I'm about to have an amazing segue. I feel like we could start maybe the Q&A a little early if anybody's interested in asking DB any questions. In the meantime, we have aluminum foil. And because we have a master prop master here, I was thinking it could be fun if we all made like our own little props. Like you could make a sword or like a little machine gun or maybe like a DeLorean if you're really talented or like a hat. That could be fun.
Pardon me.
Yeah, go for it.
One thing I'm proud of, because I'm one of the last living craftsmen. One of the last living craftsmen that worked at MGM when it was MGM, worked at it when it was Lorimar, and then I worked at it when it was Sony. And there might be a handful left, maybe, from the people I've been talking to, there might be 10 of us left that worked under all three hats. And that's a blessing, because I saw the transgression or the translation of it from a major studio lot, MGM, the old studio system when I worked there. You couldn't wear tennis shoes. You had to wear a shoe with a defined heel. That all changed in the 70s. And then I went into Lorimar when they were doing the Waltons and Dallas and all those shows. And then I worked at it when it was Sony, and it became even more impersonal. They did stay union, but it was owned by a foreign country, so it became even a little more impersonal. But I'm very blessed to have done that, I think, so, yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
if we had to put you on the spot now with this aluminum, what would you make?
Well,
Anything come to mind?
I'm not real good other than paper airplanes, but I say make a hat like Mel Gibson out of it, I don't know.
There you go.
Because it's keep it simple, right? I don't know. Just keep it simple. Daryl, how you doing? Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
No, and the reason why we're doing this is we have a really awesome fast food restaurant here. And what they do is they serve burritos, and what they do is they have a little wall of honor where people will take the tinfoil and they'll make dragons and they'll make really cool stuff out of it, and they always feature it on the site. It's called Freebirds, and so that's a really fun thing they do. So yeah, there you go.
That's about it right there.
There you go.
I've got to read a script to be able to know where to shoot from.
In the meantime, does anybody have any questions they want to ask DB? Yeah, come on up to the microphone. He's all yours.
So I've been in love with Robert Redford since Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Don't blame you.
And Paul Newman and Cary Grant, two of my favorite actors. So my question is Bob Redford a nice guy? Is he someone that you enjoyed working with beyond, running with him? And
Yes, when he started Sundance, he only sold property to people he knew. Gary Lydiard, his makeup man, bought the first piece. He's pulled away now. He's in his 80s. When you work with him, he would never let me, because I had my tie-ups. If we opened a fridge on Legal Eagles and there was my beer tie-up, he'd turn everything. And then after they'd cut, I'd go in and turn it back, and he'd never say a word to me. But he never wanted to be tied to any corporation because he truly believes, he's Sierra Club, making things right. And what he says, he's one of the few that really puts his money where his mouth is. So many actors I know aren't for guns and don't want you to eat meat, and they've got a gun under the seat of their car and they smoke cigarettes and told you not to. But Bob, whatever he says, he's put his money where his mouth is. He's the real deal. Like Michael Fox, John Lithgow, Jay Leno, one of my riding buddies, they're the real deal. And yeah, Bob is the real deal.
great. And thank you. Your stories are really interesting.
Well, thank you.
Really.
Like I said, thank you. I'm just not used to I'm getting a little better maybe, but I'm the guy behind the camera,
Yeah.
So,
But no, it's really been
well,
great.
thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? Or maybe share a story?
Ooh, yeah.
Might be inspired. Yeah, come on down, come on down.
Hi there. Thank you for coming out. And
Thank you.
I wanted to say that I think your positivity is very infectious, and I appreciate that attitude and outlook. My question is, if you had a time machine, where would you go?
That's a great question.
Who hasn't thought about that?
Right.
Have we all thought about that at one time? I mean, ever since I saw, can I tell you something? I have time.
Yeah, go
When
for
we're
it.
doing Back to the Future, this is going to get to your answer, I think. I haven't. It brings up a point. We're doing Back to the Future, and I was like this with Bob because of my stories, and I had time to go sit with him while they were lighting because he was just stressing. And things are set, and that might be the set right there where you're at. My props and their lighting, and the chair's right here. So I could sit in Bob Gale's chair, Spielberg's chair, and sit there with my feet on the ground, just leaning. Yeah, Bob, and just watching in case I had to change anything. And I got my notepad out, my steno pad, and I'm going, this is that, this is this, keeping track of everything. And I said, this is going to be the greatest time travel movie ever made. It's almost a direct quote. He goes, Bobby, it won't be. I go, excuse me? He goes, The Time Machine with Rod Taylor will always be known as the greatest time travel movie ever because it was the first. I disagree now. I think he might, and he didn't say that out of being humble, but I don't think he realized where this was really going to go. He doesn't want to do sequels. There wasn't supposed to be a part 2, which was called Back from the Future, and he only did it because they would have taken it away from him and had someone else do it. And we were prepping for 2 months. It was called Back from the Future. Everything you saw in 2 and 3 before it was Paradox was going to be in Back from, which I personally think would have been a better clicky movie. We started overlapping shots, the car scenes. But in the last few years, I've changed that attitude too. I think it works as it is. I think it's one long movie. People, I like 2, I like 3, I like 1. Stop it. It's one movie, in my opinion. It's just one movie. But I think the script I had and I worked off for a couple months, Back from the Future, would have clicked just like this. And that brings me to the thing about the buffalo. Should I tell that story? Oh, so a time machine, I'll get to that question. I think at the time he was right, but we never saw how big this was going to really be with a trilogy now. Back to the Future, part 2, when we're shooting with a camera that had never been used before. And we've got Michael as 3 different characters. This camera was a Panavision, we were film, but it was on a regular camera crane, a Chapman dolly, on dolly track on the stage where we shot, and you nail the dolly track down. You can't just have it loose.
Right.
And after Ray Stella, our camera operator, Bob, you never do anything less than 20 takes. And then he goes, I love it, let's do it again. The old time directors go, I love it, you move on. It's like Marty Ritt, done, 2 takes, you're done. Clint Eastwood, 1, 2 takes. Sinatra, 1 take. Or you ain't being asked back the next day, because he got it right. With Sinatra, he gets it right, you get it right, you know. But Bob, you just do it because that's how he directs, and he gets the product. So we had this camera that no one had ever used before, Henry. Thank you. And we're shooting, so one scene I'll tell you, that if you know part 2, when Michael's, his daughter, his son, and him coming in late at the dinner table. We're in production, and we're trying to be described how this is going to be done. Never seen it, no clue. So that's going to now become, we found out, once it's on there, you get the takes, put into a computer. This thing is like computers in the 60s, you know, from Maxwell Smart almost, you know, compared to today. You could do it with this. And now the operator just sat on the camera, and when now you bring in the other character that Michael's playing. But my question was on that scene in production, I'm not really understanding this, Bob, but when he pours the milk, or the water, was it? Or the iced tea, or into that glass over here, and then he's over here, how is it not going to pop? How are we going to keep the levels? I said, we have to come up with something that's going to be self-leveling. So that picture, when you see that Kevin Pike, oh Christ, Bob, that developed for me, and I had to go in and work with him to get it right, to where when you pour the one, it levels out, and then it pours again and it levels out. Otherwise, it would have been popping on the scene. Bing, 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 bing. But that was probably the greatest advancement that I've ever seen in the film industry. And now they do it for a commercial. I mean, with digital cameras, not even film, having to load canisters. Okay, now what do you do when you got it all nailed down and you've run out of film? The loader has got to be so careful, because if you jiggle that camera, it isn't going to line up again with that next shot. You know, remember the old days, they had to have a line like next to a door, and then we'd kind of waver, or when you see a TV screen, they'd burn it in like on the old Mission Impossible, was one of my dad's shows. So that's probably the greatest thing I saw from ground up. It was the first time it was ever used. George Lucas bought it from this guy, and the way Bob Zemeckis described it to me personally, you won't see it ever written down this way. The guy that invented it and sold it to George Lucas took the money and ran. I think he came back later, but it had never been used before. Then I also got to see where directors would actually watch the set, the scene.
Right,
Now it's all done, they watch the monitors.
right.
That changed. And that was fantastic. That came out before that. We'd used that before. But God, I never thought of it. Thank you. The greatest thing in my whole career that changed the whole level of filmmaking today was we were the first ones to use it. Thank you very much, Henry. I'm going to try to make that a better answer next time, because that's a very complicated answer. Yeah, thanks again.
Mr. Darrell.
Hi, Daryl.
Hey, you missed a part of that story
Which one? I miss a lot.
about the earthquake.
Oh, and there was, thank you. Michael Klostorin sets us straight on that one. Yeah, and there was an earthquake. We'd shot, how many times did we shoot? Did we almost have the whole, two of the characters?
Almost all done.
Almost all done, and there was an earthquake. And thank you, Daryl. See, that's how, I've never been asked the question so much. I'll have to, I think that's in his book. I'm gonna have to read that again, because I've never been asked that.
Was this in LA?
Yeah, we had a light earthquake, and it shook, and we're all going, oh, crap, thinking we're gonna have to reshoot it all. Thank you. Excellent.
I was saying he got my question before because
Oh.
I thought that was so important. that
Yeah.
And the
Tell
the
us what
pizza
else-
thing. But you know the wrapper that you made for the pizza.
Oh, the Pizza Hut wrapper. Yeah.
But I just had a side question. My friend actually just brought it up, and I thought it was pretty funny. So there's a certain billion-dollar movie that's out right now,
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen it.
and
yet.
it happened to mention something about Back to the Future in it, and it was kind of more in of a negative haha way. But I guess if you haven't seen it, you wouldn't
No,
know
we're gonna
what
see it
I-
next week when we get home. I hope.
Wait.
So I won't.
I don't even remember what did they say. What? I don't remember what, I don't.
You've heard
Let me
it?
I don't want to
Mike
say
said-
it now because I don't want to ruin it.
No. It's something to do with the DeLorean or something? I've seen people start to hint at it on our sites, but I don't,
Just time travel.
yeah, we've been in
period.
Europe
Right.
since it's been out. I didn't want to see it over
So
there.
since you haven't seen that, I'm not going to ask you
Okay.
that, but
How
I think
about-
we should actually talk about how many pizzas that had to be actually made
Oh,
for that one
do you want to
scene.
hear about the pizzas?
I think you should tell people
Okay,
that.
has everyone seen the movie pretty much? Okay, so the pizzas were real. The Pizza Hut wrapper, which we had a tie-up, I had made 2 months in advance. Bob goes, hey, love it. Love that size. You have one, don't you? The smaller one? No. And he goes, love it. Just love that. And I made up a dozen of them. And the day we're shooting, Bob now decides the size of little pizzas he wants, and the girls make them that'll fit in that pizza wrapper. But the pizza wrapper is, let's say, this big. And just barely, so the pizzas are that big. I goes, that's just too big. So those were real pizzas. We had the Pizza Hut food stylists do their commercials with the real ovens and everything. We had to run 220, not us, the electricians, ran 220 to the stoves and everything, all the fixins. And Bob came up with, I want a little pepperoni here and that you see in the movie. And so the little pizzas, he goes, right before lunch, just like the license plate, he goes, we're rehearsing. We got a break because we've been going into too much meal penalty. Regular jobs have 4 hours to meals by law. We're 6. And so you can't hardly get a movie done in what you're going to do half day. But we're rehearsing. He goes, Bobby, those pizzas are just, the bag's too big and the pizzas are too big. What can we do? I said, well, I have about this much room on the side of the Pizza Hut logo. I said, I don't know for sure if I can cut this down and have my sealer work at this stage. But I had the gals make me a pizza, couple different sizes, all the way down to the size, and he picked the smallest, of course, because he wants that different look between the big and that I'm on the other side throwing in. And so I cut that thing right down almost to the edges, get my heat sealer on the truck, and God, it worked. So I take it to him at lunch. He's sitting there at the tables and say, here's the pizza. There, he goes, perfect. So I had 12 bags. I go, we got 12 takes, maybe 15 at the most I had. He goes, don't worry, we'll get that done. So I had the electricians bring me a line. I got my heat sealer back because I know they're going to start pulling apart. And I got Scotch tape in case I've got to do this. And so Leah throws that in, and I'm behind the set. And you're sitting on a furniture pad because it's real low where the oven was. And the One Effects guy's there. And I'm holding a real pizza. Kind of hot on a tray. And now I've got to get that in there. And he's putting A and B smoke on it. And the reason you don't see them eat that pizza when they walk to the table, it's got poison on it. And you're not even legally allowed to use A and B smoke, which just, with an eyedropper, just starts smoking. Burns your eyes. Legally by OSHA, you're only allowed to use it outdoors, but we don't really play that game with OSHA sometimes. And so I think the first or second time I did it, thing didn't even make it through the slot. Just right on the floor, right in my lap, pizza stuff all over me. Okay, another pizza. These gals had made like 12 pizzas for the amount of wrappers I had. Now I said, you guys better start making pizzas. So they're over there cooking more pizzas while we're trying to get through this. I think we went through 35 pizzas. Is that what I brought? Yeah. And then it was never fast enough. Got to go faster, Bobby. I said, okay, Bob, you want to come back here behind the stage with a pole right here holding the wall up and another one here, and I'm on a furniture pad, and we're crunched down trying to get it in a slot this big. We finally got it, but we used every single pizza there was. And so there was a reason we were saying that, but you brought that up. But yeah, that was a tough one. It looks so simple. One of those things that looks so simple that becomes a nightmare. Everybody's scrambling. They can't make noise while they're making the extra pizzas.
Right.
And then the earthquake had screwed things up, that same day or the day after. And then you're not even sure we're going to have to reshoot it till dailies. And then I'm going to worry about, did I have the water just right in the thing in case they were to sip it? So you got to pour it out at night so it won't go bad. And if I pour it out at night, it's going to dry up the thing I have built in there that's going to actually help self-level. Will that dry out? And that was one of the most major scenes of my life, is matching all that. One of the hardest scenes I've ever done. Now with Al Pacino in movies, where like on And Justice for All, he comes in with all these groceries, the gal with him, and then you've got to put them all back in the same order, or Al will not be able to. He has to work off the prop, so it's got to come out the same order each time. So you better watch that scene and write down. Vegetables come out, celery came out next, and put them back in the correct order, so it'll all be taken out while he's putting them in the cupboards. And then you have to make sure nothing's in the way of that. Something got in the way. But that was probably the hardest scene that any of us have ever shot at the time, because not only that, you're dealing with a whole new, especially camera. Dean Cundy, his guys, are doing a whole new electronic thing. But there was just tons of props working in that scene, because you shot it basically 4 different scenes, from the beginning, and then all the close-ups within each, so they could put it all together digitally later, off film. So that was quite a deal. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah.
So we have like 2 minutes left. Is there anybody else who has a question or a comment they want to share? I see mumbling in the back. No? Awesome. Well, cool.
About the props. Where are the people's props?
Oh, did anybody make the prop out of their aluminum foil? I see you made an amazing
Envelope.
It looks good. You want to share with the audience?
Wait, I was just going to put a letter in it and thank you all and mail it. There you go.
I tried making a ball.
I'm not that creative. That's nice.
Oh, thank you. It's a little
I should have thought of that. I could have maybe come up with that.
There you go.
Like
a little bow tie.
I've never been asked to make anything out of it. Now, if this was a prop in a show, like when you have any kind of a thing at a dinner where it's going to be a swan, you get a stylist to come in and do that for you. You hire someone. Any kind of food things, you bring people in. Here's an interesting thing about candles. If you see the movie Scarface, when they're in the club, the old Chasins we shot at, watch the candles. They're perfect. Took a week, 5 days, we shot that dinner scene with Elvira and Tony Montana. And it took a week to shoot that, 5 days. My assistant, Eddie Villa, bless his heart, we ate like kings for a week. They cook, chefs making the food, made us our special foods, And but you watch the candles when you see that food scene, and you will see how perfect they are. They're also beeswax. You want to use beeswax, and you want to use 2 and 3 wicks in them. Never 1 wick. So you have to have your candles made special, but you use beeswax so it won't melt and ruin just get everywhere. But try to match candles at home on a big dinner scene that you shoot 5 days, the same scene. And you watch those candles, they're perfect. So Eddie and I pulled a lot of hair out on getting that done right, bless his heart. But beeswax, and then you'll see when the candles, look at the flames on candles. I've ruined a lot of people's lives when watching movies, my friends in the early days, because watch actors, there'll always be someone on an old news scene licking the pencil, called Taking a Beat, and your eyes will go right off the actor to that guy standing in the back licking the pencil, in a 1930s movie, or the telephone. Yeah, Bill, okay, be there at 8. Hang up, called Taking a Beat. Actors will do anything to get that half a second. When's the last time you looked at your phone before you hung it up? Yeah, okay. Yeah. But watch candles and see if they're dripping wax. They usually won't. And there'll be beeswax made special. And watch the size of the flames. And if you look real close, you'll see maybe 2-3 wicks. You'll know. You'll get to look at, that one's probably 2 wicks. Oh, that might be 3. And the other thing in the old 30s movies, that I had an old prop master I worked with in 72, did Mission Impossible before I was ever there in the 60s. Prop guys had this thing that they put in the hands. It was a reflector, just a real thin piece of polished stainless steel. And when they'd light a match to light a cigarette like this, light from that would go off onto their face. Oh. Yeah, I never got to do it that way, but I saw that piece. It was kind of old and it could have used polish. Yeah, we used to put that in their hands with a little stickum on the back that they'd stick wigs on with. And then they just light that match and put that cigarette up like this. And it would light their face up when you couldn't put a light in their face, So cool. Just little tricks of the trade. And if you watch Columbo, watch his cigars. I did a few episodes, and his cigars are always the right level. So you got to ask yourself as a prop person, I'll make this the last thing, how do you hand an actor a lit cigar without putting it in your mouth, which you can't do? How would you do that? Take a turkey baster and cut it off to the size where you can put the cigar in, sit on the set and light it right in front of them. And then you cut it to the size you're going to need and light it. If you need an ash, get it lit, pull it out and hand it to them. And then on your prop box, you'll set, okay, this scene, now we're moving on beyond it or we're coming back. So you'll have different sizes. And then you do your set stills with a Polaroid. And then you put in your notebook, okay, on this scene, 8F or 27B. This is the length I use, and you'd have it laying down there with a little chart and everything. But you ever think about that? I learned that from an old prop master that started in the 30s. Turkey basters. No good prop master. Every good prop master has a turkey baster or 5.
So on that note, if anybody wants to talk to you personally or privately or follow your journey, where are you going to be after this Q&A?
You tell me how to get back there, because you probably know. Across the street, in a room over there, and you know who's there are some really neat Star Wars people. Yeah.
Oh, the cosplayers.
Yeah.
Right.
Some really neat Star Wars people.
Well, and he's in the same room with Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, yeah.
Darth Vader's actual.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Is it the one room with the BB-8 and the R2-D2? Are they
Right
here-
across
are they
the
here
hall
this
from
year?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you come over, I'll give you a card, and then you can like us on Facebook. And if you have questions or just want to become involved in a really great community, whether you have the funds or give or not, people just want to have more people that are interested in the same things, which we seem to all be interested in film. And that's more than a lot of people have. It's more than a lot of people have in their lives. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your life with our life right now. Everybody, let's give it up for DB. This is awesome.